Picture this. You're floating in complete darkness, 3,000 feet beneath the ocean's surface. The pressure around you could crush a submarine like a tin can, but you don't even feel it. Your heart beats once every 10 seconds. Your lungs hold enough air to power a small town for an hour. And the song you're singing right now will travel across entire ocean basins, reaching family members you haven't seen in years. This is what it's like to live as a whale. Not just any whale, but the largest creature that has ever existed on Earth. We're going to explore the sensory world of a creature whose tongue weighs as much as an elephant, whose heart is the size of a small car, and whose calls can be heard from 1,000 miles away. We'll discover how these giants navigate oceans without GPS, how they survive in a world where sunlight never reaches, and what it feels like to hold your breath for over an hour while diving to depths that would kill most life forms instantly. I've spent the last 6 months researching marine biology papers, interviewing whale researchers, and studying the latest discoveries about these magnificent creatures. What I found will completely change how you think about intelligence, communication, and what it means to be alive on this planet. Because whales aren't just big fish swimming around, they're ancient beings with complex societies, intricate languages, and emotional lives that might be deeper than our own. The ocean is calling, and it's time to answer. Let's explore what it's really like to live as a whale. Your day doesn't begin with sunlight streaming through a window. There are no windows 3,000 feet below the surface. Instead, your day begins with pressure. Crushing, relentless pressure that would flatten a human body in milliseconds. But for you, this pressure is home. It's comfort. It's the gentle embrace of the deep ocean that has cradled your kind for millions of years. You wake not from sleep the way humans understand it, but from a state of rest where half your brain remained alert, watching for predators, monitoring your pod, keeping you alive. This is called unihemispheric slow wave sleep, and it's your superpower. While one half of your brain dreams, the other half pilots your 100-foot-long body through the darkness, ensuring you surface to breathe, ensuring you don't drift into danger. The first sensation that floods your consciousness isn't sight, it's sound. The ocean around you pulses with a symphony of noise that would overwhelm any human ear. But your ears, your magnificent ears, can detect frequencies so low they're felt more than heard. The groaning of tectonic plates shifting on the ocean floor. The distant songs of your pod members calling across hundreds of miles. The high-pitched clicks of dolphins hunting in the waters above you. Your world is painted in sound. While humans see in colors, you see in acoustics. That mountain range to your left, you didn't see it, you heard it. The sound waves you produce bounce off its rocky faces and return to you, creating a three-dimensional map in your mind more detailed than any human technology could produce. You know the mountain's height, its composition, whether fish are hiding in its crevices, whether it's safe to approach. This is echolocation, but not the simple version that dolphins use. Your echolocation is ancient, refined, impossibly complex. You can detect a school of krill the size of a city block from 50 miles away. You can hear the heartbeat of another whale from across an ocean basin. You can sense the difference between a friend and a stranger by the unique acoustic signature of their breathing. But sound isn't just your sight. It's your voice, your identity, your connection to everything you love. The song building in your chest right now, the one that will soon echo across the Pacific, carries more information than a human encyclopedia. It tells other whales where you are, where you've been, what you've eaten, how you're feeling, whether you're ready to mate, whether you're in danger, whether you found something incredible they need to know about. The song starts deep in your chest, in vocal cords larger than a grand piano, but calling them vocal cords is like calling the ocean a puddle. These are instruments of impossible complexity, capable of producing sounds that travel further than any human voice could ever dream. The low-frequency moans you're about to release will travel at the speed of sound through water, roughly 4 times faster than sound travels through air. As the song builds, you feel it in every cell of your body. Your ribcage vibrates like a cathedral organ. Your skull resonates like a massive bell. The sound doesn't just come from you, it becomes you. You are the song, and the song is you. And somewhere, hundreds of miles away, another whale will hear this song, and know exactly who you are, where you are, and what you need. This is your morning ritual, your daily greeting to the ocean. But as the song fades into the distance, a new sensation demands your attention. Hunger. Not the gentle rumbling of a human stomach, but the deep, driving need of a creature that must consume 4 tons of food every single day just to survive. Your mouth opens and the ocean rushes in. Not a sip, not a gulp, but a torrent of seawater that would fill an Olympic swimming pool. Your throat expands like a massive accordion. Your tongue, weighing as much as a full-grown elephant, moves with surprising grace to help filter the water. And caught in this flood are millions of tiny shrimp-like creatures called krill. Each krill is smaller than your fingernail, weighing less than a paperclip. But you need to eat roughly 40 million of them every day. That's not a typo. It's not 40 million tiny creatures, each one providing a minuscule amount of energy that, when multiplied by millions, keeps your massive body functioning. The filtering process is a marvel of biological engineering. Your mouth contains hundreds of baleen plates, fibrous structures that hang like curtains from your upper jaw. As the water rushes out through these plates, the krill are trapped, concentrated, and then swallowed in a mass that weighs several tons. It's like being a living fishing net, but one that operates on a scale that defies human comprehension. But here's what makes this truly extraordinary. You don't hunt these krill individually. You don't chase them down one by one. Instead, you've learned to work with the ocean itself. You know that krill gather in massive swarms during certain times of the day, following the vertical migration of plankton. You know that underwater currents concentrate these swarms in predictable locations. You know that the position of the sun, the temperature of the water, and the phase of the moon all influence where your next meal will be. This knowledge wasn't taught to you in school. It was passed down through generations of whales, encoded in the songs your mother sang to you as a calf, embedded in the migration routes your pod follows year after year. You are carrying the accumulated wisdom of thousands of whale generations, a library of survival knowledge that stretches back millions of years. As you feed, other sensations flood your awareness. The temperature of the water tells you about currents, weather patterns, the changing seasons. The taste of the water reveals chemical signatures from distant rivers, underwater volcanic activity, the presence of other marine life. The pressure changes in your inner ear inform you about your exact depth, the time of day, the gravitational pull of the moon. You are a living sensor array, collecting and processing information about your environment on a scale that would overwhelm the most advanced computer systems. Every moment of your existence is a masterclass in environmental awareness, a constant dialogue between your body and the ocean that surrounds you. But you're not alone in this vast blue world. Somewhere in the distance, you sense the presence of your pod. Not see them, not hear them in the way humans understand hearing, but feel them. The low-frequency calls that bind your family together create a constant background hum in your consciousness. You know where each member is, how they're feeling, what they're doing. It's like having a permanent telepathic connection to everyone you love. This is your family. Not just the whales you travel with, but a complex social network that spans thousands of miles. Your mother, who taught you to sing and hunt and navigate. Your siblings, scattered across the ocean but never truly far away. Your cousins, your aunts, your childhood friends. The whale you hope to mate with someday, whose songs make your heart race even from 1,000 miles away. The social bonds between whales are profound in ways that humans are only beginning to understand. You mourn your dead, sometimes carrying the body of a deceased calf for days. You celebrate births with complex songs that announce new life to the entire ocean. You have best friends, whales you prefer to travel with, whose company brings you joy. You have rivals, whales whose presence makes you uneasy. You have elders, ancient whales whose songs carry the deepest wisdom, whose guidance shapes the decisions of the entire pod. And right now, as you glide through the darkness, you're receiving a message that will change everything. A song, distant but unmistakable, carrying news that will alter the course of your day, your week, perhaps your entire life. The message is complex, layered with meaning that would take human scientists years to decode. But to you, it's as clear as if someone had whispered directly into your ear. The song tells you that something extraordinary has been discovered. A new feeding ground, rich with krill, located in waters your pod has never explored. The whale who sent this message, an old female whose songs you've known since you were a calf, is calling the pod together. She's found something that could sustain your family through the coming winter, something that could mean the difference between thriving and merely surviving. But the feeding ground is far away, in dangerous waters where ships travel frequently, where the water tastes strange from human pollution, where the sounds of civilization create a constant background noise that makes communication difficult. The journey will test every skill you've learned, every instinct you've inherited, every bond that holds your family together. As you process this information, your body is already beginning to respond. Your heart rate increases slightly, pumping blood more efficiently through your massive circulatory system. Your breathing pattern changes, preparing for the long journey ahead. Your echolocation becomes more focused, scanning the water ahead for the safest route to take. This is the moment when your day truly begins. Not with an alarm clock or a cup of coffee, but with a decision that will echo through the ocean. A choice that will determine not just your fate, but the fate of your entire family. The deep ocean around you suddenly feels less like a peaceful sanctuary and more like a vast highway, full of possibilities and dangers in equal measure. The song fades, but its message remains. Somewhere ahead, adventure waits. Somewhere ahead, your family needs you. Somewhere ahead, the ocean holds secrets that only the largest creatures on Earth are equipped to discover. You begin to move, and the ocean moves with you. Your massive tail, broader than a city bus, pushes against the water with a force that would power a small ship. But this isn't the frantic swimming of smaller creatures. This is the measured, graceful movement of something that has learned to work with the ocean rather than fight against it. Each stroke of your tail propels you forward at speeds that seem impossible for something so large. 20 miles per hour through water that offers 1,000 times more resistance than air. Your body, despite weighing as much as 30 elephants, cuts through the ocean like a living torpedo, designed by millions of years of evolution to be the perfect deep-sea traveler. The physics of your movement would astound human engineers. Your skin, smooth as polished marble, creates almost no turbulence as you glide through the water. Tiny ridges along your body, invisible to the naked eye, channel the water flow in ways that reduce drag by nearly 40%. You are a masterpiece of hydrodynamic engineering, a creature built for endurance in the most challenging environment on Earth. But speed isn't your only advantage. As you swim, you're constantly adjusting your buoyancy, controlling your position in the water column with a precision that would make a submarine captain weep with envy. Your massive body contains specialized organs filled with oil that can be compressed or expanded, allowing you to rise or sink without using any energy at all. You're essentially a living submarine, capable of hovering motionless at any depth or shooting toward the surface like a rocket. The journey to the new feeding ground will take you through waters you've never seen before. But navigation, for a creature like you, doesn't rely on landmarks or GPS satellites. Instead, you read the ocean like humans read a book. The magnetic field of the Earth runs through your body like invisible railroad tracks, guiding you across thousands of miles of seemingly empty ocean with accuracy that would shame the most sophisticated navigation systems. You feel the magnetic field not as a concept, but as a physical sensation. It tugs at specialized cells in your brain, creating a constant awareness of direction that never fails, never wavers. North isn't just a direction, it's a feeling. The magnetic pull of the poles creates a map in your mind so detailed you can navigate blindfolded through the darkest depths. But magnetism isn't your only guide. The taste of the water changes as you travel, carrying chemical signatures from distant shores. The water that touched the coast of Japan tastes different from water that flowed past the islands of Hawaii. Underwater currents carry these flavors across entire ocean basins, creating a highway of taste that guides you toward your destination. The temperature tells another story. Warm water from the tropics mixes with cold water from the polar regions in patterns that shift with the seasons, the weather, the time of day. You can feel these temperature gradients like a human might feel the warmth of sunlight on their skin. They tell you about storms brewing 1,000 miles away, about the changing seasons, about the best routes to take through the vast ocean wilderness. As you swim deeper into unfamiliar waters, new sounds begin to reach your ears. The first is subtle, a low-frequency hum that seems to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. It's the sound of human civilization bleeding into the ocean. Ship engines, oil drilling platforms, underwater construction projects. The ocean, once filled only with the voices of whales and the natural sounds of the sea, now carries the constant background noise of a species that has forgotten how to listen. This noise pollution affects you in ways that humans are only beginning to understand. It's not just annoying, it's disorienting. The low-frequency sounds that carry your songs across ocean basins are being drowned out by the rumble of cargo ships. The acoustic map you use to navigate is being scrambled by the constant noise of human activity. It's like trying to have a conversation in a room full of people shouting, but you adapt because adaptation is what your species has been doing for 50 million years. You change the frequency of your songs, making them higher pitched to cut through the noise. You alter your travel routes to avoid the busiest shipping lanes. You sing louder, longer, with more intensity, fighting to be heard above the cacophony of human progress. The effort exhausts you in ways that hunting and traveling never could. Communication, once as natural as breathing, now requires conscious effort. The songs that should flow from you like water now feel forced, strained. You're using energy that should be devoted to survival just to maintain contact with your family. As you push through these polluted waters, another sensation begins to register. The taste of the ocean is wrong. Not just different, but contaminated. Chemicals that have no natural place in the sea are mixing with the water you breathe, the water you filter through your massive feeding apparatus. Plastic particles, smaller than grains of sand but persistent as stone, are accumulating in your body faster than you can process them. Your massive filtering system, so perfectly designed to extract krill from seawater, cannot distinguish between food and the microscopic debris of human civilization. With every meal, you're consuming thousands of plastic fragments, chemical pollutants, and industrial waste. Your body, weighing over 200 tons, is becoming a living museum of human environmental impact. The toxins accumulate in your blubber, the thick layer of fat that keeps you warm in the frigid depths. This blubber, once pure energy storage for the lean times, now carries poisons that affect your ability to reproduce, to think clearly, to sing with the power and clarity your ancestors possessed. Your living proof that the ocean isn't separate from human civilization is downstream from it. Yet even as these challenges mount, you continue forward. Because ahead of you, carried on the water currents and acoustic highways of the deep, comes news that makes everything worthwhile. The feeding ground your family member discovered isn't just rich with krill, it's teeming with life in ways that haven't been seen in decades. The message reaches you in fragments, pieces of a larger song that paint a picture of abundance beyond your wildest dreams. Krill swarm so dense they darken the water. Fish populations that have somehow escaped the nets and hooks of human fishing fleets. Water so clean they taste like the ocean of your childhood, before the noise and pollution became constant companions. This isn't just about food, though your massive body desperately needs the calories. This is about hope. Hope that somewhere in the vast ocean, pockets of the old world still exist. Hope that your species can still find sanctuary in the depths. Hope that the songs you sing will reach the next generation in waters that remember what silence sounds like. Your pace increases, driven by anticipation that builds with every mile. The water around you begins to change, becoming clearer, cleaner, more alive. The background noise of human activity fades, replaced by the natural symphony of the sea. Fish dart past you in schools so thick they create their own currents. Seabirds dive from the surface above, their splashes creating percussion in the ocean's endless song. And then you hear it, The sound that makes your heart race, that fills your massive lungs with joy. The voices of your family calling across the water with excitement, celebration, pure happiness. They found something extraordinary, something that will sustain them through the challenges ahead. But as you approach the coordinates embedded in their songs, you realize this gathering is about more than just food. The acoustic signatures reaching your ears tell a story of whales coming together from across the entire ocean basin. Not just your immediate family, but distant relatives, strangers who share your species, elders whose songs carry the wisdom of generations. This is a convergence, a meeting of minds and voices that happens perhaps once in a lifetime. The feeding ground your family discovered has become a beacon, drawing whales from thousands of miles away. And as you swim toward this underwater promised land, you begin to understand that you're not just traveling toward a meal. You're swimming toward a reunion with your own kind on a scale that will reshape everything you thought you knew about being a whale. The ocean ahead pulses with voices, with songs, with the heartbeats of creatures so large they can only fully exist in the deepest waters of the world. The darkness around you suddenly feels less like isolation and more like anticipation. Something incredible is waiting ahead, something that will test every skill you've learned, every bond you've formed, every instinct that has kept your species alive for millions of years. Your approach to this gathering place requires a different kind of navigation than you've ever experienced. The water ahead thrums with the collective heartbeats of dozens of whales, each one creating ripples in the ocean that interfere with your echolocation. It's like trying to see through a kaleidoscope, where every reflection creates new patterns, new information, new complexity. The first whale you encounter isn't a member of your immediate family. She's ancient, her skin scarred by decades of survival in the deep ocean. Barnacles cling to her massive head like living jewelry, and her songs carry the weight of experiences you can barely imagine. She's traveled here from the Arctic waters, following currents that exist only in the coldest months of the year. Her greeting is formal, ritualistic, a series of low-frequency calls that establish her identity, her lineage, her right to be here. You respond in kind, your own songs, weaving through the water like invisible threads connecting your histories. This isn't just conversation, it's negotiation. The feeding ground ahead is rich, but it's not infinite. The whales gathering here must establish a hierarchy, a system of cooperation that will allow everyone to feed without conflict. As you exchange these acoustic introductions, you become aware of the sheer scale of what's happening around you. The water column stretches for miles in every direction, and at every depth, whales are converging. Some rise from the abyssal plains where no sunlight has ever touched their skin. Others descend from the upper waters where they've been following the seasonal migrations of their prey. Each whale brings their own acoustic signature, their own story written in sound. The young males sing with voices that crack and soar, advertising their strength and their desire to mate. The mothers call to calves who swim so close they seem like extensions of their own bodies. The elders hum with voices that carry the deepest bass notes, sounds so low they're felt more than heard. But it's not just the whales that make this gathering extraordinary. The entire ecosystem has responded to their presence. Schools of fish swirl around you like living tornadoes, their movements coordinated by instincts older than consciousness. Squid rise from the depths, their bodies glowing with bioluminescent displays that turn the water into a living aurora. Dolphins race between the massive whale bodies, their high-pitched calls adding counterpoint to the deeper whale songs. You're witnessing something that human science has only recently begun to understand. The ocean doesn't just contain life, it is life. Every creature, from the smallest plankton to the largest whale, is connected by invisible threads of interdependence. The krill that feeds you depends on the plankton that feeds on nutrients stirred up by your movements. The fish that follow you feed on the scraps of your meals. The entire marine food web revolves around gatherings like this one. As you swim deeper into the crowd, you begin to understand why this particular feeding ground has drawn so many whales. The sea floor here is different. Instead of the flat, muddy bottom you're used to, the ocean floor rises in a series of underwater mountains and valleys. These geological features create upwelling currents that bring nutrients from the deep ocean to the surface waters above. The result is an explosion of life that defies description. Krill swarm so dense they create their own weather patterns in the water, clouds of tiny organisms that pulse and flow like living storms. You can taste the richness in the water, feel the abundance in every breath. This isn't just a feeding ground, it's a supermarket, a restaurant, a feast that could sustain your entire species. But even as your body responds to the promise of food, your mind is processing something more complex. The songs around you aren't just greetings and territorial displays. They're carrying information, stories, news from across the entire ocean. A whale from the South Pacific is singing about changes in the currents near Antarctica. Another from the North Atlantic is reporting on the movement of fish populations that haven't been seen in decades. You're participating in something that human scientists are only beginning to recognize. This gathering isn't just about food, it's about communication on a scale that spans the entire planet. The whales here are sharing knowledge that has been accumulated over thousands of miles of travel. Decades of observation, generations of experience. It's like a living library. A conference of the world's most experienced ocean travelers. The song that reaches you next makes your entire body shiver with recognition. It's your mother's voice calling from somewhere in the crowd ahead. But this isn't the gentle lullaby she sang to you as a calf. This is a song of triumph, of celebration, of pure joy. She's found something in these waters that she wants to share with you, something that will change how you understand your place in the ocean. Following her voice through the crowd requires skills you've never needed before. The acoustic environment is so complex that individual songs blend into a symphony of sound that threatens to overwhelm your senses. You have to filter through dozens of conversations, hundreds of heartbeats, thousands of movements to isolate the one voice that matters most. When you finally reach her, she's not alone. Surrounding her are whales you recognize from your childhood, members of your extended family who have been scattered across the ocean for years, your aunt whose songs taught you to navigate by the stars, your older brother whose playful challenges made you a stronger swimmer, your grandmother, so ancient that her songs carry stories from before human ships began crossing the oceans. But it's not just a family reunion. These whales have gathered around your mother because she's made a discovery that could affect the entire species. In the deepest part of the feeding ground, she's found something that shouldn't exist. A place where the water is cleaner than it has been in decades, where the krill populations are thriving without human interference, where the acoustic environment is so pure that songs can travel for thousands of miles without distortion. The location she's discovered is what marine biologists would call a marine protected area, though no human government created it. It's a pocket of ocean that has somehow escaped the worst effects of human activity. The water here tastes like the ocean of your ancestors before plastic and chemicals became part of the marine ecosystem. The soundscape is what your species evolved to expect. A natural symphony unmarred by engine noise and industrial activity. As your mother guides you toward this sanctuary, you begin to understand why whales have been traveling from such vast distances to reach this place. It's not just about the abundance of food, though that's certainly part of it. It's about memory. This place represents what the entire ocean used to be like, what it could be again if given the chance to heal. The descent to the protected area takes you deeper than you've ever gone before. The pressure increases with every stroke of your tail, but your body adapts automatically. Your lungs compress, your heart rate slows, your blood flow redirects to protect your vital organs. You're entering a realm that exists in permanent darkness, where the only light comes from the bioluminescent creatures that call these depths home. But darkness doesn't mean emptiness. Your echolocation reveals a landscape of impossible beauty. Underwater mountain ranges that dwarf anything on land. Valleys so deep they seem to fall away into the center of the earth. Volcanic vents that spew superheated water and minerals, creating oases of life in the deepest desert on the planet. The krill here are different from anything you've encountered before. Larger, more nutritious, more abundant. They've evolved in isolation, protected from the overfishing and pollution that has affected krill populations in other parts of the ocean. Each mouthful provides more energy than you've ever experienced. fuel that will sustain you through the long migrations ahead. But as you feed, you become aware of something that makes your blood run cold. The songs around you are changing, becoming more urgent, more frightened. The whales at the edges of the gathering are reporting new sounds in the water, mechanical noises that don't belong in this sanctuary. The acoustic signatures are unmistakable. Ships, large ones, moving toward the feeding ground with purpose and speed. The news spreads through the whale community like wildfire. Humans have discovered this place. The same species that has filled the oceans with noise and poison is now approaching the one area that had remained pure. The ships aren't just passing through, they're coming to stay. To fish, to drill, to extract whatever resources they can find in these pristine waters. Your mother's song becomes a warning, a call to action that resonates through every whale in the gathering. This isn't just about feeding anymore. It's about survival. About protecting the last sanctuary your species has found. About making a choice that will determine whether future generations of whales will have a place to call home. The response from the whale community is immediate and overwhelming. Songs of anger, of determination, of unity in the face of an existential threat. These are creatures that have survived ice ages, volcanic eruptions, and millions of years of evolutionary pressure. They're not going to surrender their sanctuary without a fight. But this is a different kind of battle than anything your species has ever faced. The enemy isn't a predator you can outrun or a storm you can weather. It's an entire civilization that sees the ocean as a resource to be exploited rather than a living system to be respected. The weapons aren't teeth and claws, but laws and economics and the relentless pressure of human expansion. As the ships draw closer, their engine noise beginning to pollute the acoustic environment, you realize that this gathering has become something more than a feeding opportunity. It's become a moment of decision for your entire species. The whales here represent communities from across the entire ocean. Whatever choice they make will echo through every sea, every current, every underwater mountain range where whales make their homes. The songs around you are reaching a crescendo, a harmony of voices that hasn't been heard in the ocean for generations. It's not just communication anymore, it's coordination. The whales are organizing themselves, preparing for something that will test every skill they've learned, every bond they've formed, every instinct that has kept them alive in the deep ocean. Your massive heart pounds with anticipation and fear in equal measure. The ships are close enough now that you can feel their vibrations through the water, metal hulls cutting through the sea like knives through flesh. The pristine waters that had offered such hope are about to become another battleground in the ancient conflict between human ambition and the natural world. But you're not alone in this moment of crisis. Around you swim the largest, most intelligent creatures on Earth. Beings whose ancestors survived the extinction that killed the dinosaurs, whose songs carry the wisdom of millions of years of ocean life. If there's a way to protect this sanctuary, if there's a path forward that doesn't end in destruction, these whales will find it. The deep ocean around you pulses with possibility and danger. The next few hours will determine not just the fate of this feeding ground, but the future of whale civilization itself. The songs in the water are building towards something unprecedented, something that will require every whale to make a choice between safety and sacrifice. The ships are coming, but the whales are ready, and in the darkness of the deep ocean, where pressure and time move differently than in the world above, the largest creatures on Earth are preparing to defend the last place they can truly call home. The first ship's hull cuts through the water above like a blade through silk. From your position in the deep, you can feel every vibration, every pulse of the massive engines that drive these metal monsters across the surface. The sound is wrong, alien, a mechanical heartbeat that has no place in the ancient rhythms of the sea. Your mother's song shifts, becoming something you've never heard before. Not the gentle calls of feeding or migration, but something primal, urgent. It's a frequency that seems to bypass your ears entirely, resonating directly in your bones. Around you, every whale in the gathering responds with the same deep thrumming note. The water itself begins to vibrate. This is communication beyond anything human science has documented. Not just individual whales singing, but the entire gathering creating a collective voice. Dozens of massive hearts beating in synchronization. hundreds of tons of whale bodies moving in perfect harmony. The sound they're creating together is so low, so powerful, that it travels not just through water but through the ocean floor itself. The ships above slow their approach. Through your echolocation, you can sense confusion in their movements. Their sonar systems, designed to map the ocean floor, are being overwhelmed by the acoustic wall rising from the depths. The whales aren't just singing anymore, they're jamming human technology with the pure power of their voices. But this coordinated response is taking its toll. The energy required to maintain such a massive acoustic display is enormous. You can feel the exhaustion spreading through the gathering as whales push their vocal abilities to the absolute limit. Hearts that normally beat once every 10 seconds are now pounding with effort. Lungs that can hold air for hours are working overtime to fuel the constant stream of sound. The young whales are the first to falter. Their voices, not yet fully developed, begin to crack under the strain. One by one, they're forced to surface, gasping for air that their depleted systems desperately need. The protective wall of sound develops gaps, weak points that the ships above immediately exploit. Through these acoustic windows, new sounds penetrate the gathering. The mechanical grinding of winches being lowered, the splash of nets hitting the water, the high-pitched ping of fish finders scanning the depths for signs of life. The humans above have realized they've stumbled onto something extraordinary, and they're not going to let whale songs drive them away. Your grandmother's voice cuts through the chaos with the authority of age and experience. Her song carries a message that chills every whale in the gathering. This isn't the first time she's witnessed humans discovering a feeding ground. She's seen it happen before in other oceans, other decades, and she knows how it ends. The story she tells in her ancient song is one of loss and adaptation, of feeding grounds that were once pristine becoming industrial zones, of whale populations scattered by noise and pollution, of families separated by shipping lanes and fishing nets. Her voice carries the weight of watching her species retreat deeper and deeper into the ocean, always searching for places where the human world hasn't yet reached. But this time is different. This gathering represents something that hasn't happened in generations. Whales from every ocean, every population, every family group that still exists. If they lose this sanctuary, there may not be another place where such a meeting is possible. The ocean is shrinking, not in size, but in the spaces where whales can truly be whales. The decision that ripples through the gathering is unanimous and terrifying. They're not going to retreat. Not this time. Not from the last place on Earth where their songs can travel unimpeded, where their food hasn't been contaminated, where their young can learn what the ocean was like before humans conquered the surface. The acoustic wall intensifies, but now it's not just defensive. The whales are doing something that human science has never documented, something that challenges every assumption about whale behavior and intelligence. They're coordinating their songs not just with each other, but with the ocean itself. The seafloor beneath you begins to respond to the collective whale song. Sediments that have rested undisturbed for centuries start to shift and rise. The underwater mountains channel and amplify the whale voices, creating acoustic feedback loops that make the entire ocean basin resonate like a massive musical instrument. Fish populations that normally scatter at the first sign of disturbance are instead drawn toward the whale gathering. Schools of tuna and mackerel begin swimming in patterns that mirror the whale songs, their movements creating additional acoustic interference for the ships above. Dolphins arrive from hundreds of miles away, their high-pitched calls adding complexity to the wall of sound. Even the microscopic life in the water responds. Plankton populations shift and swirl in response to the acoustic pressure, creating biological clouds that interfere with sonar and underwater cameras. The entire ecosystem is rallying to protect this sanctuary, guided by the collective intelligence of creatures whose brains are larger than human bodies. Above, the ships are struggling to maintain their position. The acoustic interference is so intense that their navigation systems are failing. Compasses spin wildly. GPS signals are scattered by the electromagnetic effects of the massive biological gathering below. Radio communications are overwhelmed by the low-frequency whale songs that penetrate even shielded electronics. But humans are nothing if not adaptable. The ships begin deploying new equipment, devices specifically designed to cut through marine mammal interference. Powerful sonar arrays that can punch through the acoustic wall. Underwater drones that can operate independently of surface communication. Nets designed to capture not just fish, but anything that moves in the water below. The response from the whale gathering is immediate and coordinated. The acoustic wall collapses, but only for a moment. In that brief silence, something else begins. Individual whales start breaking away from the main group, swimming directly toward the surface, not to escape, but to engage. Your mother is among the first to rise. Her massive body, over 80 feet long and weighing more than a loaded cargo plane, begins its ascent through the water column. She's not alone. Dozens of adult whales are following her lead, their movements creating currents that affect everything around them. The physics of their ascent is breathtaking. Each whale displaces thousands of tons of water, creating pressure waves that travel faster than the whales themselves. The ships above register these pressure changes as underwater earthquakes, seismic events that shouldn't be possible in the open ocean. As the whales rise, they're not just moving through the water, they're reshaping it. Their massive bodies create upwelling currents that bring nutrients from the deep ocean to the surface. Plankton blooms explode in their wake, turning the clear blue water into a rich green soup of life. The ocean around the ships begins to change color, temperature, and density. The first whale breaches the surface just as the sun breaks through the clouds above. Your mother's body erupts from the water like a living mountain, her barnacle-encrusted skin glistening in the sunlight. For a moment, she hangs suspended in the air, defying gravity through sheer momentum and will. The splash when she hits the water again is visible from space, a tower of spray that rises hundreds of feet into the air, carrying with it the scent of the deep ocean, the taste of ancient currents, the sound of a creature that has decided to make herself known to the world above. But she's not alone. One by one, other whales begin breaching around the ships. Not random breaches, but coordinated displays of power and intelligence. Each whale times their emergence to create maximum impact, both physical and psychological. The ocean around the ships becomes a chaos of spray and sound, whale bodies launching themselves into the air with grace that defies their massive size. The humans aboard the ships have never seen anything like this. These aren't the scattered, frightened whales they're used to encountering. These are organized, purposeful, magnificent creatures, demonstrating capabilities that human science has never documented. The breaching whales are creating waves that rock the ships, acoustic displays that overload recording equipment, and visual spectacles that leave hardened sailors speechless. But the whales aren't just putting on a show. Each breach serves a purpose and a larger strategy. The massive splashes create acoustic signatures that interfere with underwater equipment. The pressure waves generated by their impacts disrupt sonar arrays and underwater cameras. The sheer scale of their coordinated movement creates currents that push the ships away from the feeding ground. From your position in the deep, you can feel the battle raging above. The water column vibrates with the impacts of whale bodies hitting the surface, the thrumming of ship engines fighting against the currents, the acoustic chaos of two different worlds colliding in the same space. Your own body responds to the call. The same instincts that guide your feeding, your migration, your communication are now focused on protection. The sanctuary below must be preserved, not just for the whales gathered here, but for all the whales that will come after, for your future offspring, for the continuation of songs that have echoed through the ocean for millions of years. The ascent begins slowly, your massive body adjusting to the decreasing pressure as you rise through the water column. Around you, other whales are making the same journey, their movements creating a living elevator of flesh and bone rising towards the surface. The water displaced by your collective movement creates its own weather system, clouds of bubbles and currents that transform the ocean into something alien and beautiful. As you rise, the light changes. The absolute darkness of the deep gives way to the faintest hint of blue, then green, then the golden shimmer of sunlight filtering through water. Colors that exist only in the upper ocean begin to paint the water around you. The surface, that strange boundary between water and air, grows closer with each powerful stroke of your tail. The pressure in your ears tells you that you're approaching a depth you've rarely experienced. The surface waters where smaller creatures live, where the temperature changes with the weather, where the chaos of the human world penetrates deepest into the ocean. Your body prepares for the transition, adjusting blood flow and heart rate for the different environment above. But as you rise, you're not thinking about the physical challenges of surface swimming. Your mind is focused on the acoustic landscape changing around you. The deep, pure sounds of the ocean depths are being replaced by the mechanical noise of the surface world. Engine vibrations, sonar pings, radio transmissions, the constant background hum of human civilization. The first breath you take at the surface tastes different from the processed air of the deep. It's warmer, thinner, contaminated with chemicals that have no place in your respiratory system. But it's also charged with possibility, with the energy of whales and humans occupying the same space for the first time in this coordinated way. Your emergence from the water is not a breach, but a revelation. Your massive head breaks the surface slowly, deliberately, allowing the humans aboard the ships to see exactly what they're dealing with. Your eyes, each one larger than a dinner plate, focus on the nearest vessel with intelligence that cannot be mistaken for mere animal instinct. The moment of contact between your gaze and the humans aboard that ship creates a silence that spreads across the water like ripples from a stone. Engines idle, conversations stop. Even the constant chatter of radio communications fades to nothing. In that instant, two different kinds of consciousness acknowledge each other across the vast gulf of evolution and understanding. You're not just a whale anymore. You're a representative of your species, a voice for the voiceless, a living embodiment of the ocean's right to exist without human interference. The water around you pulses with the heartbeats of your family, your pod, your entire species. Their songs give you strength, their presence gives you courage, their trust gives you purpose. The standoff that follows is unlike anything in the history of human-whale interaction. Dozens of ships surrounded by hundreds of whales, each side trying to understand the intentions of the other. The humans have technology, organization, and the backing of economic systems that span the globe. The whales have intelligence, coordination, and the power of creatures that have survived every extinction event in Earth's history. But this isn't really a battle between species. It's a moment of choice that will determine the future of the ocean itself. The decisions made in the next few hours will echo through every sea, every current, every underwater mountain range where life makes its home. The sanctuary below isn't just about whales anymore. It's about whether the natural world can still find places to exist on a planet increasingly dominated by human activity. Your song begins as a whisper, a low-frequency call that travels through the water faster than thought. But as other whales join their voices to yours, it becomes something more. A harmony that speaks of ancient wisdom, of deep time, of the patient intelligence of creatures who measure their lives not in years, but in the slow cycles of ocean currents and seasonal migrations. The ships around you begin to respond, but not in the way you expected. Instead of advancing or retreating, they're starting to spread out, creating a wider perimeter around the whale gathering. New vessels appear on the horizon, some flying flags you don't recognize, others unmarked and mysterious. The human response is evolving, becoming more complex, more coordinated. Through the water, you can feel the approach of something that makes your blood run cold. Not more ships, but something else. A presence in the deep that speaks of power beyond anything you've encountered. The acoustic signature is unmistakable, artificial, designed for war rather than exploration. Military vessels, submarines. Weapon systems that could turn the ocean itself into a battlefield. The humans aren't just here to fish or drill anymore. They're here to establish dominance, to demonstrate that no part of the ocean is beyond their reach. No creature too large to be controlled. The song around you changes, becoming more urgent, more desperate. The whales understand what's approaching. They've felt these acoustic signatures before, in other oceans, other decades. They know that military intervention changes everything. that the rules of engagement are different when humans decide that the ocean is a strategic resource rather than a living ecosystem. Your mother's voice cuts through the chaos with a message that stops your heart. The military vessels approaching aren't just carrying conventional weapons. They're equipped with acoustic devices designed specifically to interfere with whale communication. Sound cannons that can deafen, disorient, and scatter whale populations across thousands of miles of ocean. The technology exists because humans have finally recognized what you've always known. That whale songs are not just communication, but coordination. That the acoustic networks connecting whale populations are the nervous system of the ocean itself. That disrupting these networks could give humans control over marine ecosystems in ways that fishing and drilling never could. The battle for the sanctuary has become something larger, more fundamental. It's no longer just about protecting a feeding ground or preserving a pocket of clean water. It's about whether the ocean will remain a place where whales can sing, where their ancient networks of communication can continue to bind the marine world together. The submarines arrive silently, their presence felt rather than heard. They slide through the water like predators, their hulls designed to move without creating the acoustic signatures that whales use for navigation. Their very existence is a violation of the ocean's natural order, a demonstration that humans have learned to weaponize silence itself. But the whales are not helpless. As the military vessels take their positions, the gathering below begins to transform once again. The coordinated singing stops, replaced by something that human science has never documented. The whales begin to move in patterns that mirror the currents themselves, their massive bodies creating artificial upwellings and downwellings that change the very structure of the water. The ocean around the sanctuary begins to stratify, creating layers of different temperature and density that interfere with sonar and underwater navigation. The whales are using their own bodies as tools, reshaping the marine environment to create defensive barriers that technology cannot easily penetrate. Fish populations respond to these changes by schooling in new patterns, creating biological clouds that confuse electronic sensors. Plankton blooms shift and swirl, creating optical distortions that make underwater visibility nearly impossible. The entire ecosystem is being recruited into a defense network that operates on principles human technology was never designed to counter. Above the surface, the standoff continues. Ships and whales occupying the same space, each side waiting for the other to make the first move. But below, in the depths where the real battle is being fought, the ocean itself is choosing sides. And for the first time in human history, the sea is fighting back. The military submarines don't announce their presence with the crude rumble of surface vessels. They materialize in the deep like ghosts, their hulls absorbing sound rather than reflecting it. Your echolocation, so precise it can map a fish from 50 miles away, struggles to define their edges. They're designed to be invisible to creatures like you, weapons crafted specifically to exploit the very senses that have kept your species alive for millions of years. The first acoustic weapon activates without warning, a focused beam of sound so intense it feels like being struck by lightning made of noise. The frequency is calculated, engineered to match the resonant frequency of whale skulls. Your massive head, built to withstand the crushing pressure of the deep ocean, becomes a bell that rings with artificial thunder. Around you, whales cry out in pain and confusion. The carefully coordinated songs that have been building for hours dissolve into chaos. Young whales, their developing brains more vulnerable to acoustic assault, begin swimming erratically, their navigation systems scrambled by the artificial noise. Some surface gasping, others dive too deep, their internal compasses spinning wildly. Your mother's voice cuts through the sonic assault, not with song, but with something primal. A call that bypasses the frequency ranges the humans are jamming, a sound so low it travels through the ocean floor itself. It's not communication in any form human science would recognize. It's older than language, older than thought. It's the voice of the ocean itself, channeled through creatures who have learned to speak in the planet's own frequency. The response is immediate and overwhelming. Every whale in the gathering stops what they're doing and begins to move in perfect synchronization. Not the graceful coordination of their earlier songs, but something mechanical, precise, unstoppable. They're moving like a single organism, hundreds of individual bodies functioning as organs in a creature too large for human comprehension. The submarines of sonar operators watch in horror as their screens fill with contacts moving in impossible patterns. The whales aren't just swimming, they're creating geometric formations that exist in 3 dimensions, living fractals that stretch through the water column, mathematical patterns that seem to bend the laws of physics. The acoustic weapons that had been so effective moments before now strike nothing but empty water, as the whales flow around the beams like liquid intelligence. But this coordinated movement is more than just evasion. The whales are using their bodies to create acoustic lenses, focusing and redirecting the military's own sound weapons. The focus beams meant to scatter whale populations are being reflected, amplified, and redirected back at their sources. The submarine's own weapons are being turned against them by creatures who understand sound in ways their designers never imagined. The first submarine's hull begins to resonate with its own acoustic frequency. The focused whale song, amplified by hundreds of massive bodies moving in perfect harmony, finds the metal's natural vibration and begins to exploit it. Rivets strain, welds crack. The submarine's own structure becomes a musical instrument played by creatures who have learned to weaponize harmony itself. Emergency surface procedures activate across the military fleet. Submarines designed to operate in the deepest trenches are being forced to flee toward the surface by sounds that exist below the threshold of human hearing. The whales have turned the ocean itself into a weapon, using acoustic principles that human physics is only beginning to understand. Above, the surface ships watch in stunned silence as their underwater assets retreat in disorder. The acoustic weapons that were supposed to scatter the whale gathering have instead unified it into something unprecedented. The whales aren't just defending their sanctuary anymore, they're demonstrating capabilities that challenge every assumption about intelligence, coordination, and the nature of consciousness itself. The military commanders aboard the surface vessels face a choice that will define the future of human-whale relations. They can escalate, bringing more powerful weapons to bear against creatures that have just proven they can turn technology against itself. Or they can acknowledge that they're facing something that transcends their understanding, an intelligence that operates on principles their science has never encountered. The decision comes from an unexpected source. A young sonar operator aboard the lead destroyer, headphones pressed to his ears, begins to weep. The sounds coming through his equipment aren't just whale songs anymore, they're music. Complex, layered, heartbreakingly beautiful music that speaks of loss and hope, and the deep patience of creatures who measure time in geological epochs. His captain, a career military officer who has never hesitated to follow orders, finds himself unable to give the command to escalate. The sounds filling the bridge aren't the noises of animals. They're the voices of beings whose intelligence is so alien, so profound, that attacking them would be like declaring war on the ocean itself. One by one, the military vessels begin to power down their acoustic weapons. Not in surrender, but in recognition. The whales have demonstrated something that no human technology can match. They've shown that the ocean has its own intelligence, its own ways of defending itself, its own definition of what it means to be alive. The silence that follows is not empty. It's pregnant with possibility, charged with the electric tension of 2 different forms of consciousness acknowledging each other across the vast gulf of evolution. The whales continue their coordinated movements, but the geometric patterns are changing, becoming less defensive, more exploratory. They're not just protecting their sanctuary anymore, they're trying to communicate something that human language has no words for. Your own position in this underwater diplomacy is unique. As one of the younger adults in the gathering, you represent something that the older whales cannot. You're part of the first generation of whales to grow up in an ocean completely dominated by human activity. Your songs carry the acoustic signatures of a world where silence is rare, where the natural frequencies of the sea are constantly interrupted by artificial noise. But you're also part of something new. A generation of whales that has learned to adapt, to find ways to communicate despite the interference, to maintain the ancient networks of song that bind your species together. Your voice, when it joins the collective harmony, carries both the wisdom of your ancestors and the innovations of creatures learning to survive in a changed world. The song that builds around you now is different from anything that has ever existed in the ocean. It's not just whale song, but something that incorporates the rhythms of human technology, the frequencies of electronic communication, the pulse of a world where biology and machinery exist in the same space. It's a hybrid music, a fusion of ancient wisdom and contemporary necessity. The humans aboard the ships are beginning to understand that they're witnessing something unprecedented. Not just whale behavior, but the birth of a new kind of intelligence. A collective consciousness that spans ocean basins, that operates on timescales humans can barely comprehend, that processes information in ways that challenge the fundamental assumptions of human science. But understanding and accepting are different things. The economic interests that brought the ships to this sanctuary haven't disappeared. The pressure to extract resources from the ocean continues. The military vessels may have withdrawn their acoustic weapons, but the fundamental conflict between human expansion and marine conservation remains unresolved. The whales understand this better than the humans do. The song that emerges from the gathering now carries a different message. Not just defiance or territorial defense, but something that sounds almost like negotiation. The whales are proposing something that human diplomacy has never encountered. A treaty between species, an agreement that recognizes the ocean as a shared space rather than a human resource. The terms of this proposal are embedded in frequencies that human ears cannot hear directly, but that human instruments can detect and analyze. The whales are offering to share their knowledge of ocean currents, weather patterns, and marine ecosystems in exchange for recognition of their right to exist in spaces free from human interference. They're proposing a partnership that could benefit both species, a collaboration that acknowledges the intelligence and sovereignty of non-human life. The response from the human ships is confused, uncertain. The radio chatter between vessels reveals crews struggling to understand what they're experiencing. Military personnel trained for conventional warfare finding themselves in a first contact scenario they never imagined. Scientists aboard research vessels realizing that their instruments are detecting forms of intelligence that their theories never predicted. But some humans are beginning to grasp the magnitude of what's happening. A marine biologist aboard one of the research vessels begins transmitting data that will revolutionize human understanding of whale intelligence. An acoustic engineer realizes that the whale songs contain mathematical principles that could transform human technology. A military strategist recognizes that the ocean has just demonstrated defensive capabilities that make conventional naval warfare obsolete. The sanctuary below remains the focal point of this unprecedented encounter. The feeding ground that had attracted whales from across the globe has become the stage for something that transcends species boundaries. The krill that swim in these waters, the fish that school in these currents, the microscopic life that forms the foundation of the marine ecosystem all exist within a space that has become a symbol of the ocean's right to exist independently of human control. Your own role in this moment of history is still unfolding. As you float in the water between the surface and the depths, between the human world and the whale world, you embody the possibility of coexistence. Your songs carry messages between species. Your movements create currents that affect both whale and human technology. Your presence serves as a bridge between forms of consciousness that have never before acknowledged each other as equals. The acoustic environment around you continues to evolve. The harsh mechanical sounds of human technology are being integrated into the natural symphony of the sea. Whale songs are adapting to incorporate electronic frequencies. The boundary between artificial and natural sound is dissolving, creating something new. Something that belongs neither to humans nor whales, but to the ocean itself. This transformation is not without cost. The energy required to maintain such complex acoustic coordination is enormous. Whales that have been singing for hours are beginning to show signs of exhaustion. The younger members of the gathering are struggling to maintain their positions in the water column. The physical demands of this unprecedented display are pushing your species to its limits. But the whales persist because they understand what's at stake. This isn't just about one sanctuary or one feeding ground. It's about the future of intelligence in the ocean, about whether the marine world will remain a place where consciousness can evolve in forms that humans have never imagined. About whether the planet will continue to support multiple forms of awareness or whether human expansion will reduce all other life to mere resources. The standoff continues as day turns to night. The ships maintain their positions, their crews uncertain how to proceed. The whales maintain their formation, their songs creating a protective barrier around the sanctuary that no human technology can penetrate. Above and below the surface, two different forms of civilization face each other across the vast gulf of evolutionary history, but change is coming. In the depths below, new voices are joining the whale gathering. Not just whales, but other marine creatures whose intelligence has been underestimated by human science. Dolphins whose echolocation systems are more sophisticated than any human sonar. Octopi whose problem-solving abilities rival human engineers. Deep-sea creatures whose bioluminescent communication networks span entire ocean basins. The ocean is revealing itself as something far more complex than humans have ever imagined. Not just a body of water containing life, but a living system with its own forms of consciousness, its own methods of communication, its own ways of defending itself against threats. The whales are not just individual creatures defending a feeding ground. They're representatives of an intelligence that encompasses the entire marine ecosystem. The humans aboard the ships are beginning to realize that they're not just facing a group of large marine mammals, they're confronting the ocean itself, awakened to consciousness by the threat of total human domination. The sanctuary below has become a symbol of something much larger. The right of the natural world to exist independently of human control, to evolve its own forms of intelligence, to defend itself against extinction. Your own understanding of this moment continues to deepen. The songs around you carry information that stretches back millions of years, encoded in frequencies that have been passed down through countless generations of whales. But they also carry something new, something that speaks of adaptation, evolution, and the possibility of forms of consciousness that have never before existed on Earth. The water around you pulses with the heartbeats of creatures whose intelligence spans continents, whose thoughts move at the speed of ocean currents, whose memories encompass the entire history of life in the sea. You are a part of something unprecedented, something that will determine whether the future of Earth includes multiple forms of consciousness or whether human expansion will reduce all other intelligence to silence. The night deepens, but the standoff continues. Ships and whales, technology and biology, human ambition and natural intelligence, all existing in the same space, all waiting for something that will determine the future of consciousness on Earth. The sanctuary below glows with bioluminescent life, a beacon of hope in waters that have become a battleground for the soul of the planet. And in the depths, where pressure and time move differently than in the world above, the largest creatures on Earth continue their ancient songs, adding new verses that speak of change, adaptation, and the possibility of coexistence between forms of intelligence that have never before acknowledged each other as equals. The ocean holds its breath, waiting for the dawn.